This is just an audio check for the live stream. Thanks.
We seem to be able to hear it clearly in here. Sorry, I'm just going through my own Zoom login here so I can see people online and so forth, so it should just be coming up now. For those watching online, just to give us one more minute here as we complete our tech, and we have three councillors who just had to step out for a moment. We'll be back here in just a minute. Okay, thank you everybody for your patience as we just got that resolved. And welcome to our special council meeting for July 7th, 2025. Councillor Braithwaite is unable to join us, so we are down to 6 tonight. As I call the meeting to order, we always just like to acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish peoples, specifically the Lekwungen people known today as the Songhees and Esquimalt or Kasapsum nations. And we just recognize that their connections to these lands and waters continue to this day. First up on the order of business is approval of the agenda for the special council meeting of July 7th. Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Mayor's remarks. I do have a number of remarks, but I'll try and keep it fairly brief. I just kicking off, I had the joy of having a couple of visitors from central Canada come join us. I'd never been to the island before, and it was it's so lovely to have that when you get to see your community and the region through people's eyes that haven't seen it before. You really come to appreciate how special this place is, especially in the summertime. So I think hopefully everybody here and watching has a chance to just enjoy our community over the course of the summer. A couple of things that council was able to participate in. One was the Songhees walking tour led by Cecilia Dick this last weekend on June 27th. Very informative and really interesting chance to have to talk a lot about a lot of the ceremonial aspects and so forth of First Nations life that we haven't had in previous conversations. It was great. So thanks to Cecilia and to members of council who were able to attend. We also had both staff and council participating in the Pride Parade that happened this Sunday, yesterday. So really want to express our appreciation for the staff who helped organize and all of the staff members who participated in that, as well as all, of course, the council members. I also had an invitation to attend and was able to attend the Songhees Council transition event that happened last Wednesday. This was a really interesting reintroduction of traditional ceremony related to meaningful community events and transitions of power to the elected process. So this is the first time they applied some of these very meaningful ceremonial pieces to this transition. And so they invited a number of people from outside the community. It was primarily a community event and really, really a real honor and really an interesting event to be part of. Also we had the first concert in the park on Thursday, which is on Saturday on July 5th. And the next one on a regular schedule at 6 p.m. is happening this Thursday, July 10th. Also, of course, the July night market is happening this Wednesday, and the car show is happening this Sunday. So all fabulous events. Probably given the thousands of people who show up, I don't need to mention it, but I will anyway. I also, just as an update to council, I've been sitting on the, as there's a seat assigned by the province to either Esquimalt or Oak Bay on Victoria Regional Transit Commission. I've been sitting there for the last six and a half, almost 7 years. That seat is transitioning back to Esquimalt, so Mayor Desjardins, who has sat on there previously, will be taking over that role. Lastly, I attended the Alliance to End Homelessness in the Capital Region annual general meeting recently, where direction was given to wind up operations of that organization. And I just thought I'd say a couple of words about that, as I've been on that board a couple of times over the last number of years. And, I think we can agree, listening to the rationale for it, the decline of support, particularly financial support, but also just political support for that organization really made the decision appropriate. I can't argue with it. But I think it also really wanted to highlight there is an urgent need for a concerted provincial approach, in particular to address homelessness prevention, mental health supports, and addiction. I'm hoping that the closure of the Alliance to End Homelessness in the Capital Region will be a bit of a wake-up call to the province, that things are broken, and certainly the City of Victoria has made a pretty substantial financial commitment to some work being done, but all of that has to be done with a partnership between municipalities, the province, and nonprofits. It was a role that the Alliance was built to take on. I think from a structure and funding model, it wasn't able to do that in the end, but the work it's done, the information it's gathered, and the direction it's provided in terms of roadmap still stands, and I'm hoping that as a region we don't let that go away. The mandate of that organization was to transition to see homelessness be rare, brief, and non-recurring in the region, and I think that has to be the goal for us, and it is achievable with work. So I just thought I'd just take a moment, given the imminent closure of that organization, to say a few words. Moving on to the agenda, we have reports and memorandums. The first one, which is subject to public input, is a report related to a new road name for a cul-de-sac that is currently King George Terrace, but is in need of having a new name. So I'm going to direct this, I believe, to Mr. Rennick as the Director of Engineering and Public Works to introduce the item. Welcome, Mr. Rennick.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Why am I feeding back? As the mayor said when introducing the item, essentially there is a cul-de-sac off of King George Terrace that will soon have too many lots on it to reasonably assign civic addresses to. And so in discussions between engineering, building and planning, and emergency services, we've deemed that now is the time for this cul-de-sac to get a new name. And so we are essentially presenting the problem to council and have outlined a couple of potential avenues that council might take in looking for a new name. And essentially we are looking for direction so that we can prepare a bylaw to rename this portion of King George Terrace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick. That was a very brief piece. Thank you for throwing this at us to deal with. Other questions from members of council to staff? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Rennick. I wondered if any consultation had been done yet with existing homeowners on the street. Thank you.
Mr. Rennick?
Through the mayor, not at this time. The only homeowners that would be impacted are the ones who are currently living at 287 and 289 King George Terrace, as what was 291 King George Terrace is a vacant lot. And so staff felt that because there were so few affected residents that essentially we could provide the information after the fact and help them navigate the address change.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, that kind of leads to my next question, which is, could we assist them by navigating that change, and has there been any thoughts as to potential costs that might come up for those homeowners with regards to, temporary mail redirection, and would we be in a position as a district to provide a grant to assist with costs related to address changes? Thank you.
Mr. Rennick, are you aware of costs that would be a fault of the homeowner in this situation?
Yes, thank you for the question. And through the mayor, the cost of redirecting mail for a short period of time is a nominal fee. I don't have that amount off the top of my head, but I do not recall it being very financially significant.
Thank you. Councillor Smart.
Thank you. No, appreciate that it wouldn't be financially significant. I guess my question still stands through you, Mayor, to staff. Like, are we in a position to potentially alleviate that cost from the homeowners, or would it be seen as privileging an individual and not be in our scope to assist with that? Thank you.
Mr. Rennick?
Through the mayor, yes, that would not be a problem for us to accommodate out of the operating budget for a short period of time to help with the mail forwarding for those residents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did I see another hand for questions? Yeah, Councillor Green.
I'm a little late to the table on this one, and I appreciate the information through you to Mr. Rennick. Was there any contemplation, and this is not your responsibility, but had we ever thought of, we had talked at one time of looking at place names like Wangan language place names, and I just wondered if there was any thought, Mr. Rennick, of doing that with this particular, and it may not have been appropriate. I was just wondering if that was any part of any discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It is one of the options in here is to consider consulting with Songhees and Esquimalt to ask them if they have a name.
Sorry, I
suggestion.
missed that.
No worries. Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Patterson.
Yes, just to that, which I think it would be a great step forward to work with the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. But I'm just wondering, perhaps Mayor, if you know or staff know, what the time frame would be for achieving that is. I know that they've worked with other communities, and so I'm wondering if we have a sense of what the process is and the how long it would take to accomplish.
Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, I think that that's a good question, and I am always hesitant on placing timelines on processes that involve the nations. It would be difficult to estimate how long of a timeline would likely be involved with consulting them.
All right. Any other questions or staff? Go ahead, Councillor Watson. And then
Yes, and just thank you, Mayor. A follow-up to that. Is there any, given that the existing properties do have an address, what's the soonest time we would need to have this resolved in terms of the development of the 3 new homes on the Crescent?
Rennick.
Through the mayor, I would say probably 8 or 9 months is when those houses will be looking for occupancy, give or take a few months. I haven't been by there. So relatively time sensitive.
Thank you. Thank you, and I note the historical references in here, the use of former reeves or mayors, the First Nations naming process in other jurisdictions, and then the prince and princess option that is in that stretch currently, which is kind of a funny circumstance. I think I might suggest to council that we consider probably 3 things. One, perhaps you have a context for name for this one, and perhaps come up with some sort of policy for other sort of non-aligned names in future, and that might be First Nations or some other piece. But those are sort of the pieces. Is there any other, since the writing of this report, any other sort of naming conventions that you've come across that have you'd like to kind of flag for us at all, Mr. Rennick?
No, Mr. Mayor, not at this time. I'm also not aware of any imminent new roads that will be in need of names, but I do think that it's always a good idea to have something in place.
Sure, thank you very much. I have a suggestion of something else that isn't a prince or princess name and isn't going to put time pressures on First Nations. I'm also sort of cognizant of the fact that asking a special name for this, what is going to be the smallest street in Oak Bay, isn't the highest honor either. And I don't think we necessarily need to add more reeves to the list. I'm just thinking, actually, there's a lot of native flora that's to this area that might make sense, that we just sort of consider asking staff to consider some local flora that would grow in that location. There's Pacific madrone, there's trillium, there's yarrow, there's snowberry, there's all kinds of local things that could be used that may be non-controversial and appropriate. And if we want to maybe ask to come up with a naming policy, we might just do that as well. But that's another option I thought of that might be a relatively simple one that would be appropriate for the site. I'll leave it there. And any other questions? If not, I'll go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Little bit tongue in cheek there, but when you talk about you know, some of the flora that's in the area, are you referring to the common name, the scientific name, or the First Nations name?
It's not entirely tongue in cheek. I actually thought about that. There is actually, you know, a lot to be said for if we had a policy of using flora names. I think a scientific name might be a bit of a stretch, but you know, camas is known as cottle, right? So there are names for plants that we could ask if they would be willing to share those with us. Again, I think, yeah, I think those would have to be considered pretty carefully for them. I don't think that would be something they would give away that name easily without some consideration of the appropriateness and significance of it. But yes, I did think that would be quite possible to do. Anyway, I'm just going to seek direction from council at this point for a direction to staff. Go ahead, Councillor Watson, or questions.
And yes, really comment about options. I have to say that I like the option of turning to the nations and asking them. They may not have these feelings, but when I look at that site and I think of its overlook to McNeil Bay, which is a traditional landing site for the nations, it's a place where they came in, and it's an absolutely beautiful spot. I think it's and that promontory of rock is a beautiful outlook for those looking out too. And I think it would be, well, it's up to the nation to decide whether they think that would be an honor, given that it's a small little crescent, but it's a pretty significant piece of land in terms of viewshed and outlook. And so I thought that this might be a nice opportunity to reach out and as a first step. And if that's not something that's as the nations feel is appropriate or they're interested in, that's fine. But I would like to see that as a first step and not as before we do anything else.
When I hear people say, I think we should, I tend to ask if they have a motion prepared for it.
I was actually,
So we can debate.
If it's all right, I would just move the staff motion. Is it option 2? I'd like to move option 2 in the staff report, that we direct, that staff be directed to return to council with options for new name from the cul-de-sac following an engagement with Esquimalt and Songhees Nations.
Okay, moved and seconded, thank you. Just so we're all clear about what that looks like. So I'm guessing if we don't get a response back or that they haven't expressed interest in the next few months, that you would come back to council for further direction. Is that the essential intent here, Mr. Rennick?
Yes, thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. I would say that's reasonable. We'll have a pretty clear picture by the time council's back from summer break of whether or not the nations are interested in participating in this process.
Okay. And I do appreciate it's a bit of a tight squeeze ask here. Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe a question and just guidance on potential motion, but I guess what's implicit in this motion is the staff will reach out to the nations and let them know what's kind of going on. I'm wondering whether or not we might either as part of this or as a subsidiary motion actually back this up with a letter from mayor and council, just letting them know that this has been if this passes, that's the will of council, and rather than, not that it's not important coming from staff, but that it's actually supported by a letter from mayor and council saying, well, this is what council elected to do and supportive, and would really like to hear from the nations as to whether or not they'd like to participate in this process. So kind of going beyond the functional aspect, which is critical, but also indicating council's more broad support and commitment to engaging with the nations about the specific element.
I'm going to suggest, well, it probably doesn't have to be a part of a motion, but it probably makes sense to just make an amendment to the motion, just to, and direct the mayor to write a letter to both the council, both First Nations councils, in support of the request. Would be, I think, appropriate.
So a motion to amend, Your Worship, with that language.
So just to append it to direct me to write a letter to the two councils in support. Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Does staff have any concerns with that motion?
No, Mayor, I was actually going to suggest that Councillor Appleton was saying mayor and council, and that you've revised it to just be coming from the mayor, which I think simplifies it, because it is representing a resolution should it be passed by all of council. But from a process perspective, it's easier for one person to write a letter.
Yeah, the language would always, it'll come from me, but I would write on behalf of council, so I understand the clarity of the, thank you for that. Okay, so the motion is that, you have the amendment motion on the floor right now, which is to add direction to write a letter in support. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed, unopposed? Back to the main motion as amended. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Moving on to item number 4, section 5, bylaws and permits. We have, the first one is the Uplands Golf Club driveway access. Mr. Rennick, you are back as to introduce this item, also reasonably straightforward and as asked. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. This report, as you say, relatively straightforward, responds to some prior council direction to provide some options for processing a request from the Uplands Golf Course for widening one of their driveways. Essentially, this request first came through to staff, and when we evaluated it, we realized that there was no mechanism under the driveway access bylaw to approve the request. Because it's not a land use bylaw, it can't get a variance. So essentially, what staff has done is prepared for council's consideration a bylaw amendment that would allow council to direct wider than normal driveway accesses to commercial or institutional properties. And essentially, the reason that it says commercial or institutional uses is just to provide flexibility in the types of properties that may seek to have wider driveways. But we also wanted to be consistent with direction council has provided through small-scale multi-unit to keep driveway standards the same for residential properties. I did inform the Uplands Golf Club that this report was coming tonight. They did not let me know if they planned on attending, and I don't see any of them here, but I did include the initial letter that they had sent to mayor and council back in March, just to provide some additional context. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
No, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Rennick. Just a procedural question. So if this goes through tonight, does council, again, see the variance, or does that go to the variance committee, or is it operational? I'm just curious if this is the only touch point with council.
Mr. Rennick, I know it comes back for adoption at some point.
Through the mayor, the draft bylaw language would require council to pass a resolution in order for the permit to be issued. So council would still need to deliberate the specific matter of the Uplands Golf Course. And council can't do that tonight. Council can't do that until the bylaw is adopted.
Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Rennick. So for this and other subsequent property owners that may come forward, we would typically see at the council table a like a site plan showing a wider driveway access to review as a council review item in this particular type of situation.
Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, that's exactly correct. The language in the draft bylaw amendment is that if, in the opinion of the municipal council, the proposed driveway access would not substantially affect the use or enjoyment of adjacent land, and so council would need to be provided with a site plan and possibly also a letter of rationale in order for council to be able to make that determination.
Thank you. Other questions of staff? Just for my clarification, and I think you answered it, but just 100% clear. So in this a situation like this, where an institutional body said we need to widen our driveway, they would come and put an application, and the staff would then inform the applicant and say this has to be approved by council. So then a report would come to council with the application and a staff report, kind of like a variance process, and then we would adjudicate that application. Is that essentially what would happen, Mr. Rennick?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you. And the only other question I have is just the language of commercial and institutional. I appreciate, in this case, a golf course is like recreational or some other term, but the building on it is considered commercial. So this is adequate to deal with driveway access to the building. Is that accurate?
The Uplands Golf Club is zoned P3, which is one of our institutional uses. And so
Okay.
it would be covered under the institutional use.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Those are all my questions. Not seeing any other pieces. So we have a series of recommendations here, starting with receipt. So moved is for receipt. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. There's your debate receipt. Oh, sorry. My apologies. This is open for public input and I should not be moving through that piece of it. I will seek if there's anybody online who does wish to talk to council about this matter. Please do so. If anybody in the audience wishes to speak to council about this matter, you're welcome to do so. Mr. Rennick?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, not to break protocol. I don't know if there was a motion to receive the last report.
Oh, fair enough. We'll do that as well. Thank you. So just to give people a chance to raise their hand online, I will go and deal with the receipt of the report of the King George Terrace cul-de-sac. It is a bit of a non-requirement, but it's always good to keep consistent with our process. Can I have a motion to receive the report of King George Terrace? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Coming back to this, we have a mover and a seconder for the receipt of this item, seeing no public input. Are we ready? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Now I'm going to have someone read aloud the bylaw, please.
Your worship, I would move that driveway access bylaw number 3550, 1987, amendment bylaw number 4918, 2025, be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. This is the opportunity for debate. I'm going to suggest if anybody is in opposition that they speak now. Otherwise, I don't need to have multiple people motivating. Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
Your worship, I would move that driveway access bylaw number 3550, 1987, amendment bylaw number 4918, 2025, be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. Do I see something? Thank you. Any further discussion? We don't usually debate on third reading. I just want to say before we let this go, I just appreciate staff coming forward with this solution to a problem that sort of found a glitch that didn't have a loophole. And so thank you for creating an allowance for a loophole that allows us to have a reasonable discussion on a reasonable ask. So thank you for that. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Moving then to 5.2, this again has options for public input. So process here is we'll have a staff interaction, we'll have questions of council, and then we'll go to the public for any public input, back to this table for direction. So with that, Ms. LaChance, and for anybody who doesn't know Ms. LaChance online, she is the Director of Finance and Asset Management and is here to introduce this financial amendment. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening. The report before you presents an amended 2025 to 2029 financial plan bylaw. Based on experience in recent years and with heightened activities in capital and operating spend, staff are recommending regular routine budget bylaw amendments. This will help handle changes outside the annual financial plan cycle, updating the financial plan for certainty. At times, assumptions used in the annual cycle do become outdated, and staff do receive new direction or receive grant awards throughout the year. The report does outline a number of different cases with which we will be doing amendments, and I'm happy to answer any questions on that as I finish my comments shortly here. The attached bylaw includes amendments to the budget for the external municipal hall washroom. That's to recognize grant money awarded, and we also updated the total project budget for related accessibility requirements attached to that grant. There's also recent direction from Council to commit surplus to Esquimalt and Songhees Nations, separate payments in that case. And in addition, we also included budget amendments for any budget transfers that have been requested under our existing policy. And then we also included an omission from the 2024 plan, which should have been carried forward but had not. The inclusion of all of those changes up to date provides a budget for the public as well as for our internal records through our financial system, so that all can manage their budgets throughout the year with certainty that they're reflected council's approved expenditure authority. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Sure, thank you, Ms. LaChance. And this is a bit of a departure from prior practice. I might just ask, can you maybe just a real explanation of the rationale for doing this and how often we might expect these kind of updates in future?
Yes, thank you. So yeah, the rationale staff were recommending based on past experience, the last couple of years, there have been a number of decisions made between the annual financial plan approval process and the subsequent process in the following year, which do affect and have financial implications, and in some cases have material impact on capital budgets or operating surplus available. And we would absolutely like to make sure that those revised budgets are updated in the capital variance and operating variance that council receives. And then we also want to make sure that any public version of the budget has also been updated for all of the direction received. By way of legislation, we can amend at any time the financial plan bylaw, or sorry, council can amend for certainty. And with, as I mentioned, heightened activities in capital, decision-making, grants, it does provide clarity and transparency where we are able to come back and amend the budget and not be constrained to the annual process.
Very much. It's nice in this case, it's mostly good news of grants coming in and so forth. So yes, thank you. Councillor Smart. And then I see Watson.
Thank you. Through your mayor to Ms. LaChance. This is really helpful, and I really appreciate this new initiative. I was wondering, in future, as we might see reports like this potentially involve things like staffing that might therefore affect property tax increases, would it also be possible when we receive these reports in future to see projected potential property tax increases, or is that very much out of the realm of this kind of intermittent report? Thank you.
Ms. LaChance.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the question. That is immediate concern when we're amending the budget outside of cycle. As you know, we can only raise tax revenue once a year. So any amendments will be limited to those that are, already have other funding sources. So we wouldn't allow for any changes to an expenditure authority approved that comes from a taxation revenue source. Thank you for that question.
Councillor Watson and then Green.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. To Ms. LaChance, please. Just to follow up really on the Mayor's question about how often we might anticipate these reports, is it, I just wanted to clarify, is it your proposal that at any time there need to be amendments you come, or will you wait and bundle them? Will it depend on the materiality, or I just want to make sure that you don't give yourself more work than you need to, but that it's done prudently as you're with more thoroughness maybe, or just that it's done in a way that it hasn't been done before.
Ms. LaChance.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. Yes, again, thank you for the question. So the intent is to keep it as a regular routine. I wouldn't call it quarterly, but every few months. We'd be looking to update for directions and make sure that the expenditure authority is reflected for decisions that have happened. So I anticipate, and in past experience, you tend to end up seeing one or two as necessary, spaced out over the course of the year, around 3 months.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you very much, and through you to Ms. LaChance, thank you for a terrific report and changing the process too and making it so much more transparent. I think for Oak Bay, that's a huge step now forward. Just a question on the reporting process. Is it also possible to make good news announcements around savings, where things have actually, we've actually saved money or been able to be really efficient financially? Is there room for that as well? Thank you.
Ms. LaChance.
Yes, Your Worship, all excellent questions this evening. I appreciate that insight as we take these reports forward and make them work for the public and for council and for us to manage operations. There are examples of where we will recommend budget reallocation under our existing policy, and oftentimes those are cases where we're coming in under budget, but not always. But we can take a note away that we will highlight that if that's the case.
Thank you. That would be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Ms. Lachance? Okay, are there any members of the public who wish to address the council on this item? Anybody online who wishes to address council on this item? I do not see any, so back to this table.
I will move receipt of the staff report, Your Worship.
That's good. Moved and seconded, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed, unopposed?
Your Worship, I will move that the 2025 to 2029 Financial Plan Bylaw number 4899, 2025, Amendment Bylaw number 4915, 2025, be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Is there any discussion on this matter? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
Your Worship, I would further move that the 2025 to 2029 Financial Plan Bylaw number 4899, 2025, Amendment Bylaw number 4915, 2025, be read a third time.
Moved and seconded, thank you. I don't usually debate on third reading. All those in favor? Any opposed, none opposed? Like 5.1, 5.2 will be coming back for consideration of adoption at a future meeting. So thank you for that. We now move to section 6, which is bylaws and permits. This area is not subject to public input. It's here just for council deliberation, according to our procedures bylaw. Up first, we have 6.1, which is Uplands Siting and Design. I see Ms. Lachance packing up, so thank you very much for your attendance and participation here tonight. 6.1, Uplands Siting and Design for 3065 Surrey Road. It says here Mr. Green, but it is in fact Mr. Bowl, our Director of Community Building and Planning. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Green couldn't make it tonight, so I'll do the honors. The application tonight is an upland siding and design for an addition to an existing home. The goal is to add accessibility features and allow the current owners to age in place. In addition, includes a garage slash gym, a new ground level entry, and a new end space for a new internal elevator. And this has been reviewed by the advisory design panel, and they recommend to council that this application be approved. In terms of tree removal, there may be 2 trees that could be affected, but they're right on the edge, so that needs to be further investigated. Other than that, most of the required tree canopy is already there, and a little bit would need to be added at time of building permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowl. Is there any questions? Or is the applicant here? Oh, online. There we go. So if there's questions, I may have to direct them to the applicant. But moving back to this table, are there any questions for staff or the applicant on this application? I'm not going to lie; it seems pretty straightforward. Okay, so perhaps we can get to motions then. Can we have a motion to receive the report? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. And then perhaps I can have someone read out a motion, and we can debate that. Go ahead.
Your Worship, I would
Doesn't
move...
need the official reader tonight, Councillor Appleton.
Very good. Very good, Your Worship. I would make the motion that Upland Siting and Design Permit ADP 00184 for 3065 Surrey Road to permit the proposed addition of a garage, gym, a new ground level entry, and a new internal elevator to an existing single-family dwelling be approved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this? I will just say thank you to the current owners for doing thoughtful work, for maintaining a house, not tearing it down, and finding a way of making the existing, what is a very beautiful house, an incredibly beautiful lot, continue in its use. So thank you very much for that. I'm happy to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
We move to item 6.2. We've had first, second, and third reading of this bylaw in previous meetings. I'm going to ask someone to read the adoption portion of this bylaw into the record before I call the... Go ahead.
Your Worship, I would move that Animal Control Bylaw number 4013, 1999, Amendment Bylaw number 4917, 2025 be adopted.
Is there a seconder? and seconded. We do not, generally, a debate happens at first and second reading, but certainly before I call the question, I'm happy if there's anybody who wishes to flag anything. This is a chance for sober second thought for before adoption. I'm not seeing any hands popping up, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Move then to item 6.3, the municipal ticket information bylaw, amendment bylaw number 4. Anyway, I'll let somebody read the motion into the record.
Your worship, I would move that municipal ticket information bylaw number 4846, 2023, amendment bylaw number 4916, 2025 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Same process as before. If anybody wishes to flag this before I call the question, I'm happy to take debate. Not seeing any, but for anybody watching, we do debate these matters as they go through first and second reading. So this is here basically as a requirement to take a break in between to make sure we haven't missed something. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. We now move to new business. There's 2 notices of motions put forward here by Councillor Braithwaite, who unfortunately could not join us tonight. So what I've suggested is that we will read these in, and I think Councillor Green, you've got some notes from Councillor Braithwaite either to read or at least to be able to answer questions. And I don't need you to read it aloud because the motion is in the package for the motion, but I would need somebody to move the motion, and if it's seconded, then we can debate. And if people feel they want more information or feel it's not, we can always refer this to a future meeting as well. So those options are available to us with the absence of Councillor Braithwaite. So Councillor Green, did you wish to move the motion? Just as a
Move the first motion.
okay. So this is the changing the definition of financial institution. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Councillor Green, did you wish to read anything into the
Yeah, I feel like
motivation?
I feel like I'm channeling Councillor Braithwaite tonight. I have her comments. Do you want me to read them all?
I don't want you to do anything. I just
Oh, you
would
just
like-
want to leave it?
No, you can just do as you see fit to if you feel it may be more appropriate if there's some questions or not, but you can provide a brief overview. If not, I'm happy to.
I'll read the opening paragraph then,
Sure.
and then if anyone has any questions. And these are her words, not anyone else's. Today, I am bringing forward a motion to propose an amendment to our zoning bylaw that would limit the number and placement of real estate offices in the village, aligning their regulatory treatment with that of financial institutions. Specifically, this motion recommends that the definition of quote-unquote financial institution in the zoning bylaw be amended to include quote-unquote real estate office, and that the current zoning regulations, such as restrictions on ground floor and street-level occupancy, apply equally to both. This is proposed as an interim measure to remain in place until the village area planning process is further advanced and a more comprehensive land use review can be undertaken. There are several reasons why I believe this action is timely, necessary, and aligned with the values of our community. And I'll just read the headings of each one. Protecting the vibrancy of our village, preventing commercial homogeneity. It's one of those tough words. Homogeneity. Aligning with existing policy and planning principles. In-term protection while long-term planning continues. Supporting a resilient local economy. Reflecting community values and character. And ensuring equitable access to commercial space. And I will note that there is a letter of support written by Heather Leary from the Business Improvement Association.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. I'm happy to take questions or comments at this point. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I certainly understand the intent of bringing forward the motion for the goal that it hopes to achieve. My only concern, perhaps, Mayor, through you to staff, is that definitions of financial institutions and real estate operations are governed by legislation, and so there's the Real Estate Services Act of BC, for example. And so I'm just wondering if staff can comment on the potential that we might have challenges if this is how we seek to restrict retail from service-type operations in the village.
Sure, and it might tie also to process. So if this passes today, does that happen automatically, or does the bylaw come back for a change for second, third reading, et cetera? So, Mr. Bull.
Yeah, through your worship, definitely requires a bylaw amendment, and I haven't looked at the Real Estate Services Act, but I think for us this is a land use matter. In this case, these uses are all in the C3 zone, but our C3 zone is a bit out of the ordinary as it zones land uses by floor. But in that context, as far as I know it today, council is entitled to make changes to which use can go where. Not much like the financial institutions have been zoned for only below or above street level. This could be done for real estate offices as well. Thank you.
Just for my clarification, if it's deemed to be not viable, that would be flagged in the process of drafting the bylaw changes. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor, yes, for sure. Yes.
Okay, that check would happen. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Other questions or comments are both welcome at this time. Your microphone is still on, Councillor Green.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, no worries. I might just, I'll speak very briefly. I'm supportive of this. This is very similar. There was a time when banks were propagating and taking up a lot of the retail front-end space in the village. And so they put a piece, it doesn't prevent those from existing, it just prevents expansion. I think as a temporary measure, it makes sense. I know there's been concern raised by the business community that there are some kinds of businesses that improve vibrancy and some that don't. And so this isn't getting rid of anything, but it's just essentially putting a hold on things. It would, as I understand it, put a hold on things for the time being to make sure that any new businesses going in are hopefully adding a bit more to the vibrancy of the village. Whether it'll have that effect or not, I'm not sure, but as a temporary measure, I'm supportive of the intent. Any other discussion? Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a comment, and maybe it'll be a question to staff. So if I'm understanding this, the motion is very specific, but there may be a more elegant way to get the result that's intended. And if we, in terms of how the use is defined, or whether, these issues around what's actually a financial institution, maybe we just have a different class of thing in the bylaw itself. So I just wanted to make sure or clarify that if we move forward with this motion and it passes, that it's not necessarily specifically this approach, it's just a way to get to the end result that Councillor Braithwaite has suggested.
I'm sure. I think it's fairly specific, so I don't want to put too much pieces there, but I think it will ask the question of staff, is this a reasonable approach to it? Like, if staff looked at some potentially different ways of achieving this outcome, and is this approach reasonable, I guess is probably the best way of putting that. And you don't have to answer the reasonableness question, that's maybe not fair. Mr. Bowl?
Thank you for your worship. It is definitely specific. There may be other ways to do this as well. It could go in two ways. If this is the letter of the motion, we would draft it in specifically this way, but probably consider if there are other ways that should be considered and bring it back that way. Or if council would give slightly more general direction, then we would simply look for the easiest, the most straightforward way to make this arrangement. But either way will work. Thank you.
So I'm just going to suggest, if people wish to see a more generalized approach, a slight amendment to say to give permission for staff to bring back other approaches to achieve the same goal would be, I think, a reasonable model for that consideration. Councillor Green?
I will share one of the points, point 3, around the planning piece, and Councillor Braithwaite has researched it, and her comments are that we already apply zoning restrictions to financial institutions in Oak Bay. For example, current bylaws limit their presence on the ground floor to 40%, and in some areas prohibit them at street level altogether. These measures reflect a thoughtful planning decision aimed at preserving street level diversity and encouraging public-facing activity. Real estate offices share many operational similarities with financial institutions: low public interaction, limited walk-in clientele, and underutilized storefronts. It is both reasonable and consistent to apply the same zoning logic to both.
Thank you. Councillor Watson?
So with that additional helpful information, I would like to propose that the motion be amended just to be that staff be instructed to bring forward an amendment to the zoning bylaw that would treat real estate offices in the same manner as financial institutions within the village. And then the interim measure stuff could stay, because that's definitely part of the intent. But I think that jumping to the solution to the problem by defining financial institutions, by changing that definition, may not be the best way to do this. And so I just think maybe that's why I'm proposing just a more open motion. Just removes that.
Sure, I'm going to ask that you read that.
Okay. That staff be directed to amend the zoning bylaw to treat real estate offices in the same manner as financial institutions within the village, within Oak Bay Village.
Okay.
And then it would continue that this interim measure remain in effect. That this be an interim measure that remains in effect until the village area planning process is further advanced.
Thank you. I think that's reasonably clear. Is there a seconder? It's moved and seconded, but I have a question, so I'll go to the question first.
Thank you, Your Worship, and not necessarily not supported, but is that we have the notice of motion that Councillor Braithwaite presented. That's on the floor.
Okay.
I don't hear that so much as an amendment as sort of a substituting motion. So are those two motions necessarily compatible with one another? So we're talking about modifying the definition, changing the definition, and then we're talking about modifying the zoning bylaw. So is the actual motion as presented by Councillor Braithwaite necessary to support the language in what's been provided here?
Thank you for the question. Let me just contemplate that briefly. I'll take that really as is it an appropriate amendment? Does it diverge too much from the original motion? It's a bit awkward without having Councillor Braithwaite here to know the entirety of the intent. But my reading of what I've had the reading back from Councillor Watson, I read that as being very similar in intent. It takes away the prescription of changing the definition within the zoning bylaw and allows for any changes within the zoning bylaw that make sense to achieve the same outcome. So I think it's probably in alignment as an amendment motion. But I'm welcome. The process here would be to challenge me, I think, if you thought that wasn't the piece, or you have an additional question, please go ahead.
Just for clarity, Your Worship, then, are we amending, is the amendment to amend the language in Councillor Braithwaite's motion, or is it additive to then? Are we actually replacing language from the original motion, or are we creating new?
I had it as essentially amending the first half of the motion.
Yeah.
To essentially just to say to change the zoning bylaw to be to align the rules for real estate offices to those of the financial institution, which could be done with just adding it to the definitions, or it could be done through some other mechanism. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Your Worship, and not speaking to the amendment that's on the table, speaking to the notice of motion that was submitted by Councillor Braithwaite. If I'm understanding the concern is that the financial industry and the real estate industry may define financial institution or real estate office in a certain way. Unless that's defined in the Interpretation Act, the district has the freedom to use those same terms with a different definition in our zoning bylaw. So you can feel comfortable with the notice of motion as it was presented, that it won't conflict with the Interpretation Act that's used to interpret provincial regulations.
Thank you for
and
that.
municipal.
I think we did have a pretty good sense that if that had been a conflict, it would have got flagged, but it's good to have that answer right now. What I'm hearing right now is that there's a little bit of discomfort with the amendment intending to correct it, of being so prescriptive about the solution as opposed to defining the problem and asking staff to change the bylaw. So I think they're in alignment. So I'm comfortable with the motion standing. Whether it's needed or not is another question entirely. Councillor Appleton.
Provided that at the end of the day, staff understand the intent of what council is requesting, Your Worship, I don't really have a problem with it.
I'm going to just turn to staff and just ask the question: does that changing of wording meaningfully impact? It just basically opens up options if there's a different way of doing it, as I read it. Mr. Bull, how do you interpret that amendment?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think when we draft the bylaw, we're going to take a closer look regardless. And I think the motion that was put forward did have some input earlier. I was looking back at my emails earlier when we answered some questions about this topic. So it's probably a very good option, and we'll double check if there's any other options. And regardless, I think of whether there's a second motion to specify that or not. So thank you.
Okay. Anyway, the motion is on the floor. If the mover and seconder are comfortable with keeping it there, I'm happy to have the debate on the motion. If it's defeated, we'll go back to the main motion. If it passes, we'll have the amended motion. So the debate we're having right now is on the amendment. So if we're going to change the wording of the motion as amended. Councillor Patterson, did I see your hand up on the? No, I didn't. That one you were just seconding. Any other discussion on the amendment? I do think this is it's kind of cutting the hair pretty fine here in terms of what we're asking. So on the amendment, all those in favor? Any opposed? I just don't think it's necessary, but I'm not opposed to it. So it passes. So with Councillor Green and myself opposed. If we're back to the motion as amended. Any further discussion on the amended motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Green opposed. I appreciate why you're opposed to it, because it's been amended.
I just want to clarify, I don't feel comfortable changing someone else's motion, and so that's why I'm voting against it. Thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. At the end of the result will be the same, so I think it's, appreciate you just phrasing that if you're in opposition. I move now then to item 7.2, which is another notice of motion from Councillor Braithwaite. So what I'm going to do is I'll have, if you wish, Councillor Green to read it into the record. You're not bound by supporting it, but I think you agreed to do that. If there's a seconder, then we will have a discussion. Go ahead, please.
These are Councillor Braithwaite's words. I'm bringing this motion forward
No, you need
because...
to just read the motion in, and then we'll see if there's a seconder.
She didn't provide the...
Oh, it's in the
Let me
agenda
just look at it
package,
here.
yeah.
Yeah. Hang on. There it is. That staff be directed to present options to enhance pedestrian safety at the intersection of McNeil Avenue and Hampshire Road.
Thank you. Moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'm bringing this motion forward because of growing concerns about safety at the intersection of McNeil Avenue and Hampshire Road. This is a busy crossing used daily by students, parents, and caregivers heading to and from Monterey Middle School. We've heard from residents about near misses and how difficult it can be to cross this intersection safely, especially during peak school hours. While we may not yet have a record of serious incidents at this location, I believe that we have a responsibility to act before something happens, not after. There are limited traffic calming or pedestrian safety features in place currently, and visibility can be an issue. This creates real risk, particularly for children and older pedestrians, and undermines efforts to support walking and active transportation in our community. Improving safety here would also align with Oak Bay's broader goals around safe routes to school, climate action, and creating a walkable, livable community. And it would be consistent with steps we've taken in other parts of the municipality when similar concerns have been raised. So, I'm asking that Council support this motion and direct staff to bring forward practical options for enhancing safety at this intersection, whether that includes signage, crosswalk improvements, or other measures that would help make it safer and more accessible for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I go to other questions and comments, I'm just going to ask staff. This intersection is obviously on McNeil, which is in the course of having pipes replaced and then traffic changes made to it. So perhaps it'd be helpful just to understand in broad terms what changes are planned for that corner and maybe the timelines for the work underway. Do we have Mr. Rennick in the room? I will ask him. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As part of the McNeil Avenue traffic calming project, should it be approved by council, and that project is currently out to tender, what is proposed at that location is the construction of curb extensions at the corners of the intersection. So what that does is it narrows the road. It'll make it so that it's a shorter distance for pedestrians crossing the road. I don't have the full detailed design in front of me, but my understanding is that the crossing distance will be shortened to 6 meters, which is essentially the width of 2 lanes of travel, whereas right now it's closer to 9 or 10 because there's also parked cars there. The timeline for that being constructed, it's currently out to tender right now. We're expecting to be in front of council at the end of the month, seeking approval to award that project, with construction to take place in fall and winter of this year.
And just for our clarification, the construction is the underground works followed by the surface improvements, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It'll be the same contract. So the underground works first and then the curb extensions. And so I was contacted by some residents in the area with their concerns, and I did inform them that this was in the plans that council had approved and let them know what the timeline was, just for council's awareness.
Okay, thank you. I think it's just helpful for some context for us to how we're looking at this. Maybe I should, a logical follow-up, maybe, sorry, I'm asking the questions here, but I just, if this motion passes and we have options come back, what is the timeline for the options to come back? I'm just trying to get a sense of how this overlaps. Mr. Rennick?
Realistically, looking at the departmental work plan, looking at the council schedule, it's unlikely to happen before September at the earliest. And one of the options might well be continue on with what has already been directed as part of the project.
Okay, thank you for that. I had a mover, and I think Councillor Appleton, you seconded it. Do you wish to speak to it at all? Councillor Patterson and then Smart.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate the motion. However, this is one of the intersections that was identified in the 2023 Pedestrian and Sidewalk Master Plan. My only concern is, and it's nice to hear that this is already in the works for scheduling, but there were several intersections in that plan that also need to be done. And so, you know, I wouldn't, what I would hesitate to be promoting is that lobbying within the community accelerates the schedule over what the pedestrian and sidewalk master plan was, which identified and ranked the importance of the project. So that's my only comment. I'm very happy to hear that the work is already scheduled and that's where it falls in the plan. I just was concerned that there would be public input that would rearrange the entire plan when there might be other intersections that also warranted correction. So thank you.
Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through Mayor to Mr. Rennick, I just wondered, with the public comments that engineering has received and understanding that the plans are not in front of any of us right now for the McNeil upgrades, were there particular issues that were brought up by the community that wouldn't likely be addressed by the curb bump outs there? Like, can you comment a little bit more on what the concerns were and versus what is workers already planned?
Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, one of the concerns that was brought up by the residents, and it was also in the write-up that Councillor Braithwaite prepared that Councillor Green read, is sight lines. Curb extensions are very helpful for sight lines because they bring a pedestrian out so that they don't have to peer around parked cars. Another one of the concerns that's been raised by the residents is vehicle speeds, particularly on McNeil. Curb bump outs also help with vehicle speeds because they create a narrowing of the road, which tends to slow drivers down. There have been requests for a marked crosswalk at that location. That is not currently in the design plan, and the reason that a marked crosswalk is not currently in the design plan is that there are Transportation Association of Canada standards on how many vehicles and how many pedestrians there are before a crosswalk is warranted, and there are also standards for how close crosswalks are meant to be. There are already crosswalks at Victoria and at Monterey, and so there are already significant opportunities to cross McNeil Avenue, and so it was not felt that an additional one was needed at that location.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Councillor Smart. Councillor Green, and then actually I'm going to do first-time speakers for. Well, I'm not sure if you were speaking for yourself or for. I'll go to Councillor Green and I'll go to Councillor Watson. Go ahead, Councillor Green.
Yeah, I have a split personality here tonight. I don't know who I'm speaking for, but I did attend the meeting with Councillor Braithwaite with Mr. Brees, and I think the biggest concern for them as well, and Mr. Rennick is correct, there are two schools. Hampshire sits in the middle between two schools, Monterey Middle School on one end and SMU on the other, St. Michael's University School on the other end. And so the convergence of school traffic there for both pedestrians and drivers, parents picking up, dropping off children, navigating either on bicycle or walking, it is a really busy corner, and I know that because I live a block around the corner, so I've observed it for a long time as well. But those were the primary concerns, and so there was a sense of urgency because they wanted to try and get something done in safety terms before the beginning of the school year. So I'm just reiterating what the citizens said to both of us at a meeting. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a question for staff about the pedestrian sidewalk master plan, going back to Councillor Patterson's point that there are other intersections mentioned. And it's funny, but when the public came and spoke to us about this, which led to this motion, I presume, I thought that they were talking about the intersection of Hampshire and Windsor. And I wondered if that intersection, Hampshire and Windsor, has been identified in the pedestrian and safety master plan for any. It's just a point of information. I'm not intending to do anything with that. I just wanted to know if that intersection is one of the ones, since Hampshire is also a north-south route.
Thank you. I think we were just laughing because I think we've all walked that, and it's a very wide road at that point. So, Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, I don't have the information off the top of my head of whether or not that location was included in the pedestrian and sidewalk master plan. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I have my hands up again. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson, and then Smart.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate staff's relaying to us what the plan is, which fits with the master plan. One of the things that was mentioned for that stretch, that intersection, was improved pedestrian lighting, and I'm just wondering if anything is being changed with the lighting.
Mr. Rennick, my recollection is no, but is that changing?
Mr. Mayor, no, at this point, there is not a plan to upgrade the lighting at that location.
Thank you. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Rennick, I just, with all of this discussion, I can't help but to think of the fall coming up, and I'm just wondering, will council be seeing a touch point with regards to the phasing and road closures and safety precautions that will be taking place when McNeil is upgraded, taking into consideration all of the students? That might be totally operational, but I'm just curious if we'll have a sense of what that is going to look like. Thanks.
Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, that aspect of a construction project has traditionally been an operational matter in Oak Bay. When bidders are bidding on that construction contract, one of the submittals that the successful bidder will have to provide is a traffic management plan that will be reviewed by the engineering department so that we can provide comment on it. And now that we have, just to put in a little plug, now that we have Municipal 511, we will be able to put that road closure information out there in a portal so that not just residents, but also parents whose children attend the two schools on the corridor can keep apprised of what's happening with the roads.
Thank you. I do appreciate the improvements to communication that have happened in engineering over the last few years, Mr. Rennick. It's very helpful. And I think those things like school notifications, so hey, by the way, this is coming, go an awfully long way for the parents. Even although most of them forget and still get frustrated when they show up and it's torn up, but at least we do our best for it. I'm just I haven't spoken yet on this. I'm obviously we always want to make sure that we improve pedestrian safety, but it's awkward when we have a project that's imminent at that very intersection. I'm just wondering if, from my perspective, if we support this, but, perhaps it's an addendum to this that this should be, bring back options, but, if the McNeil corridor is, delayed in any significant fashion, because I think it's an important intersection, like many of them around there, but I think it seems awkward to ask for reports back in the fall when we're going to have appointed a project lead, and that's all going to be torn up as part of a project immediately in any case, and probably wouldn't be actionable. So I can see the value if that project is delayed significantly, but I have a hard time seeing the value if it is follows the current timeline. So that's just sort of my two thoughts on it. Because obviously, yeah, I want to support it, but the timing here is a pretty critical piece. The motion is, I think, read into the record at the moment, so that would require an amendment if people wish to see something like that. At the moment, we're just debating the primary motion. Councillor Smart?
I would like to propose an amendment to add at the end of this motion, should the McNeil corridor plans be delayed.
Moved. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Do you want to motivate?
Yeah, thank you. I just, yes, in looking at this, obviously, we've been made aware that there are existing plans for safety requirements that are on a very tight and continually moving schedule, and so it doesn't seem to make sense at this juncture to do anything that would delay the current planned safety improvements. It doesn't sound like there's an opportunity to add a lot of scope to this project at this time. It sounds like the current safety improvements at that intersection address the concerns that have been raised by the community. And we've also heard that the addition of a crosswalk there has already been looked at previously.
The discussion right now is on the amendment, which is to add, should the project be delayed. So basically that would change the motion to be advanced only if the project is delayed. Otherwise, the current project will take the lead. Councillor Green?
Yeah, I just want to ask a clarifying question of our director. Through you, Mr. Rennick, so it's possible that, or it's designed that construction will begin in September on McNeil. Is that the idea? Thank you.
Mr. Rennick?
Through the mayor, we will be closing the construction tender either tomorrow or Wednesday. We will be coming to council July 28th, seeking approval to award. Assuming that goes through, then I would say that it's hard to predict when exactly machines will show up, but I would say that if council awards the project at the end of July, that likely construction is starting either late August or early September, yes.
I really appreciate the clarification. I suspect that the construction alone will slow traffic and make it safer for everybody. So that's a good thing, and there are flag people associated with that project, so I hope that's satisfactory. I'm in a bit of a dilemma. I feel like I should support this motion, and the amendment makes it, but I think if Councillor Braithwaite knew about that, I think she would agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Right now, the motion is the amendment, not the main motion. So the amendment is to add language that essentially only enacts this motion if the project is delayed. Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll support the amendment to the motion on the floor, I'll support the amendment. I have opened the pedestrian sidewalk master plan, and clearly this intersection was analyzed thoroughly as part of the process of identifying I think there are, I've now found out, 19, and the one I asked about is not on the list, 19 intersections. So I think the work's been done, and to try and short circuit that or change it at this point does not, it's counterproductive, actually. So I think that holding off, and then we'd have to figure out how long that delay would have to be, but I support the motion for the reasons that we do have a plan that was thought through carefully.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, Mayor, thanks. I guess I have some difficulty supporting the amendment because if it's, staff present options if the project is delayed, but options for what? If the options are already outlined in the report and we were going forward with the plan that was already established, then the only thing that I could understand we would want options for would be the scheduling, and that doesn't make any sense. If it's delayed somewhat, it's delayed. So I guess I'm just seeking clarification on what exactly what would we be seeking options on?
Thank you. In some ways, the main motion, but we have the motion. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, being the mover of the amendment, I can speak to the sort of things that I would be imagining that might come forward would be things like a temporary pop-up for narrowing that area. So just different options for providing a temporary safety improvement should, say, we have a 1-year delay for some unknown, perhaps an archaeological item is found. I don't know.
All right. We have a motion on the floor to amend it. I think your comments, Councillor Patterson, are totally appropriate, but in some ways they relate to the whole motion. So the question right now is whether we amend first. Nothing in their hands, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? And any opposed? Councillor Patterson opposed. We now have a motion amended that would seek enhancements for pedestrian safety, but only, and options to come back, but only if the project is delayed. So that is live as amended. Any other discussion before I call the question? Not seeing any. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Patterson opposed. That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Rennick, for being here to answer those questions on the fly. That was very helpful for us. And to you, Mr. Bull, for the same reasons. Thank you. That is all of the notices of motions. Is there any other? Actually, we don't do new business. I guess we could do notices of motions if people have them. Not seeing any. I need a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? And it's still daylight out. That's a good sign. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you all next week.